Meaning you can't use it period, or you just
You can't
use the
use
extra
it,
space?
period.
Oh, period? Oh.
Yeah.
So you can't partition it, put windows on part of it, like 4?
No,
and then
that's
you-
exactly what I'm
that's it,
saying, you
that's it,
can't.
Not at all?
Not
It's
at all,
Anything
right.
above 2, that's it?
Yeah.
It's brick, okay.
Yeah, it's a brick. And audio support. This machine has audio support, but other machines of this age, it's kind of dicey. And after this, reports on the wiki indicate that audio support's pretty much not going to happen. That's why the USB audio is interesting, but on those newer machines, it's USB 3.0 only, so that doesn't work either. So we have a lot of resistance as you go up. I could take the latest small form factor desktop or tower, plug in the one remaining PCI slot, or it might have to be PCI, a USB 2.0 card, which aren't made anymore, and get the USB 2.0 on a newer machine that way. Someone had proposed that, and I said, it's kind of a good idea, but I'm not going to cover it today. So those are sort of the feeling of what is the frontier on hardware for ArcaOS. And so about laptops, it's a philosophical, how do I use a laptop? I can have a big, nice screen, keyboard full featured, and the penalty is it's heavy to lug. This is probably a 7-pound laptop, and it's not pleasant to drag it around. Or it can be small, and well, we can't have the latest. Laptops are getting really small. The 1-pound laptop is definitely here. We're not going to be working on a 1-pound laptop real well, so that's a limit. But it's still nice to have a 2.5-pound laptop. So, and I kind of like that idea better. I'm more inclined to have this one, but I knew for this, I'd probably want a big one, so I went with that. Wi-Fi. These travel routers, and I went with this brand, but I think they're all pretty much about the same. It connects to a USB port for power only. It has
TP-Link?
Yeah, this is TP-Link.
Yeah, I found it usually works fairly well.
Yeah, and I got one, it worked. I went to get another one, oh, it's gone. Oh, but it's the next higher level of 802.11 support. Okay, I'll take an AC router, it's faster. GenMac on my old machine, if I connect it to my iPhone as a hotspot, it just crashes, it's gone. So these are the only way for at least that I can see, to use a hotspot. And hotspots are in all phones and cars now. If you use this with your smartphone or your connected vehicle, this gives you WAN capability, which is kind of nice. We've always wanted it. We never really had it in. I guess Sigurd got it working, but it's crazy. The way he did it was very interesting. But okay, so the travel router is really easy to use. I actually.
What do you mean it gives you WAN access? What do you mean by that?
In other words, I've got a hotspot on my phone. As long as I've got cellular data signal, I can use this, and then I can open up my laptop, at the beach and be working.
You're just mean you can get to the internet through yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mobile hotspot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that gives you WAN capability, which we had been sort of always I want this for a couple decades, I don't know, a long time, and we never had it. And the other operating systems have had it for a long time. We kind of have it now. So procedure, just I always put a URL icon for my router onto my desktop so that I can hit it. The limitation of the TP-Link is that it remembers where you're connected last, and it connects again to it. So I've focused mine on the hotel Wi-Fi, and I don't have to do anything. I just plug it in, turn it on, it's connected to hotel Wi-Fi. But if I want to change my mind and use something else, then I have to go to the configuration page and use it again. And I don't know exactly how they do that. It's that they capture the request and say, oh, this request isn't a real request. They don't pass it on with the rest of it. They go, he means he wants to run configuration again. So I think it's just tplink.org or something like that. I don't know. But So log on, they say use quick setup, so I just, put this together, hit the quick setup, say, yeah, I want to start configuring Wi-Fi, choose the client. This thing does a lot of different things. It can be an access point, it can be a bridge, but what I want it to do is provide client support for a machine that does not have Wi-Fi. Mostly the documentation says that at that point, well, how do you want to connect your PlayStation? But I don't have a PlayStation, I have an OS2 computer, so I just sort of read between the lines and say, that's the one I want.
So it's being used as an access point? Is that the-
No, it could have been, it's not.
So what is it being used?
What is it being
What's
used
the
as?
term?
A client.
The client.
Let's do that.
Just like the card in your laptop would be a client.
Yeah,
It's just that that client is external to your laptop.
yeah.
It was confusing when I have one of these things
Yeah.
right here, but when I pull up the config, I had no idea what.
Right. Yeah, that.
What is it?
This is sort of from a page on my website. I'm using the travel routers. So, if you go to my technical notes and pick travel routers, you'll get a whole procedure, and it probably spells it out better than I'm giving it today. But, I wanted to go through this to show what you're going to have to go through. And, you could plug this in. If you have a computer at home and you want to get to your router, you might not want to have your computer next to your router, and you might not want to have to run Ethernet throughout your home. So this will work pretty well for a desktop as well. And so I haven't done it yet, but I anticipate getting more of these. The other modes won't help, right? Okay, scan for the signal, and then choose the one that looks best. At home, I have my home router, and I fix that, but I live in a city, so when I bring up the list of, I have my entire neighborhood's routers, and I gotta pick mine. It's a good guide to your neighbors' personalities too, what they pick for the name of their router. Anyway. Yeah.
The ones with no lock on them.
Now that they come all password protected, I don't see the unprotected ones very much anymore. And the ones that I do see are like names that you might want to report to the FBI. Oh, who's that guy who spilled all the beans at from the no, it wasn't the FBI, it was from the military.
I mean, the guy in Hawaii.
Snowden.
Snowden.
Yeah, he was part of a group that was based in downtown in Santa Cruz for a while. And I was like, wait a minute, I go to that coffee shop. I've probably seen those guys just sort of hanging out in the morning, drinking coffee, discussing anarchy. Yeah. Okay, so I enter my password here, and yeah, this is nice, and this, like any other modern device, figures out what security level you're at and asks for the appropriate credentials for that. Our XWLAN, not so good. And I've struggled with XWLAN on new places, and it's like, how was I supposed to guess that AT&T little dongles use Web64?
Web64?
Yeah. I was like, it was not my first guess. Okay, and then they use Smart IP. I just wanted something that would pretty much be transparent, so that seemed to be the best choice. Their documentation was not so clear, but you can just try every one until one works. But
What does that mean, smart ID, like?
so
what's the
it
DHCP?
passes, yeah, it's more DHCP compatible. In other words, well, this thing could have an IP address, and then you could have an IP address, and your router could have an IP address. That's not necessary. I mean, actually, I guess it is necessary, but they can hide it from you. I prefer it hidden, so that I just have an IP here, and I know my router has both an internal and external IP. Okay, that sounds fair. We can't get less complex than that, so that's what I was looking for. And then it's configured, and then I've had a lot of trouble with this. The simplest thing for me to do, once it's all configured, is just reboot.
What
Always
is
do-
this?
When the router says it's done, it says, oh, wait 2 minutes. Well, our DHCP is
Yeah, you essentially.
It might
have to-
work.
Yeah, you need to go through the script to restart
Well,
the DHCP.
these use a 1 minute lifetime, so waiting 2 minutes is almost guaranteed to exceed
Yeah.
that 1 minute lifetime.
Yeah,
But do we actually reacquire? Sometimes.
sometimes.
So, rebooting works every time, so that's why I do that. Okay, I just wanted to get through the Wi-Fi, because that's,
One other thing is, also the DNS, I had to go in and configure a DNS server for it to find any web pages.
Really?
Yesterday, yeah.
When you connected to the Wi-Fi, you didn't?
It didn't give me a DNS. Well, it gave me one that didn't work apparently. There was something in there. But I had to go, I
yeah.
put in the Google ones, I think, you know?
I've had that
Well,
happen.
They work.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to know your.
Just another thing I ran into using
Yeah.
those things.
Most
can't
of the
take
time,
those
that's not
things.
necessary. It's not necessary in a hotel here. But sometimes, yeah, you'll get connected, you're pinging, but not to anything with a name. And it's like, well, I guess I need a DNS then. And then I go, all I have to do is look up the I can't. So it is, that would probably be a good thing to add to this, is just a list of DNSs that, you know, work when your router's misconfigured and doesn't give you a DNS.
Right.
So this is the machine with the big, nice screen, what they call full high definition, 1920 by 1080. This is not the high resolution that it used to be. Most new laptops that are high resolution are at least 4K and maybe higher. But you know, this is, we're probably not going to see a lot of machines that we can use that are higher resolution than that. And so that's nice. You know, my age and declining eyesight, maybe not as necessary as it used to be, but it is kind of handy to have all those dots. I bought these, and they have 500 gig drives. I usually upgrade them to 2 terabyte drives. But you know, that's because that's how much data I have. If you don't have that much, I wouldn't even touch the hard drive it comes to. This one has an i5. I read that the i7 had more USB problems, so I avoided that motherboard. I'm not sure I should have. You know, I haven't heard of people running the i7 T540p, but yeah, we're right at the edge. You know, could I have gone one step further? Probably. So if you know, depending, I may actually get that machine and see. It sounds like USB 3.0 will come out eventually, and then my attention will be on a much newer machine. So we'll see. A lot of them just came with 8 gigabytes because it's an expensive screen, so they go, well, you might as well have more RAM. And so I've been using the RAM disk that provide the ArcaOS and QSInit provide. And that, except I can't think of a great use for it, but it's kind of.
Browser cache.
Browser cache, all right. Yeah, actually, because it erases it at the end, which is maybe good.
I mean, unless you set the option to try to preserve the contents, which we don't necessarily recommend.
Yeah.
Temp files when you're building these. When I build the ArcaOS ISO, I now build against the RAM disk.
Oh, okay.
And it's amazing the difference in performance.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know whether I would get that kind of difference if I had an SSD in the machine.
Oh.
But from a physical hard drive,
Yeah.
mechanical drive, to the RAM disk, it's incredible.
Okay.
It's
It's
a real-
faster than SSD too, because my
Is it?
machine has an SSD, it's faster if I build it.
Okay.
Louis, the same question that I asked Greg. Do you feel the difference with the browser cache on the RAM disk? Do you feel it on Firefox?
Depends upon what I'm doing on the web.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
like what?
if I'm downloading something, if I'm downloading a poorly scripted website that's got
Okay.
lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of image maps,
Okay.
then yeah, I notice a difference when the cache is on the RAM disk.
Okay.
If I'm browsing a site that is mostly text, a few images, it doesn't have
Yeah,
image maps.
that's-
It's not really
okay.
much of a difference.
If you are browsing a site that is mostly JavaScript, you know, let's say it's just downloading a gigabyte of JavaScript.
JavaScript is, you know, gigabyte of JavaScript. I just got that. You know.
No script fixes.
Kind of fixes it, except the website doesn't work.
Yeah, except the website doesn't work.
Which is probably a good thing if they.
Loads
have
up fast,
JavaScript
doesn't do
on it.
anything.
Well, no, a lot of them do. I mean, if you're running Office, for example, it's gonna be pretty big,
Yeah.
Yeah. so. Oh, power consumption. Not an issue for most people, but, you know, I'm in California, you know, we have a lot of, issues around electricity, and so ours cost more. You know, for what it's worth, I do kind of put the power consumption on every computer, just, you know, because, you know, I wanna use a little less. If I leave it on 24/7, which I do sometimes, that's gonna add up at the end of the month, you know, and, we even have tiered power consumption, so I'm paying that marginal rate. And, you know, I have other things that I really don't feel like turning off, so, you know, the conservation on the computer is, you know, an issue for me, not a big issue, but
You're under PG&E?
not anymore,
Oh, you're not?
no.
Oh.
It's been a big change in the last few months. A lot of people who were like me aren't anymore. And we didn't have to do anything to have that happen.
Are there any issues installing on machines that are more than 4 gig RAM?
No, no.
So if it has 10 or 8, it just
It'll
won't
u-
use the rest?
Yeah, and it's just like if you had Windows XP, you would use 3.5 roughly, you know, 4 minus your video memory, basically. And, you know, video memory gets bigger and bigger. Eventually, 4 minus the video memory of 8 isn't gonna work. So that, I think, look at a new laptop, that's gonna be another impending issue, is does it have a fallback mode on video that's small enough for us to still run a 32-bit operating system? Because eventually it won't have any memory left.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Do you have a slide that describes the socket complement for this T40?
Socket?
Sockets, USB sockets and?
No,
Oh.
no.
Some people are interested in that.
Okay, just, you know, what each one of them does, or,
Well, there's at least 3 USBs, and then there's this one here, it looks like, I don't know what it's for.
okay. Well,
The display port,
it's display, mini
display port.
display port, okay. Yeah, I don't, you know, I haven't described everything on the, on my web pages.
Oh.
And that's because of my ignorance, really. If OS2 doesn't support it, my interest sort of wanes, and actually, I'll bet it does support mini display port, based on other experiments that I've
You mean
done.
If
OS2
it's,
does?
if the mini display port, output is supported in the BIOS,
Yeah.
then we should be able to talk to it.
And we'll get further on, and we'll see a couple of machines where I have tested display port, for mini display port, and it did work.
Yeah,
So,
Does it have an HDMI connection?
I don't think so.
none of it's got mini display port, it probably doesn't.
It's either one of the
Yeah,
other.
you know, again, we don't really do HDMI, and I don't, like a lot of people in my town, I don't have a TV, so I don't care.
You know OS2 won't work with HDMI?
Oh, if
It's
it's
on
in
the-
BIOS,
If it's in BIOS, it'll work with it.
yeah.
Snap, for the ones that don't support it in BIOS but require a software
Support?
switch, Snap doesn't support switching output to an HDMI port, it doesn't, it's HDMI ignorant. So, one of the plans that we have for Snap is to add that support to it, so that if you have one that where you don't have a BIOS switch to support HDMI out, or DisplayPort out, you can do that with the Snap driver, but it doesn't do that now. It's gotta be BIOS.
Let me move on to audio support. This is a change that David made, and it was a trivial change, but it was important to the end user. It wasn't processing the /A parameter very well. So it turned out that it has DisplayPort, it has audio out. These are 2 channels. Well, how did it number them? Was it what, DisplayPort first and audio second? Well, it turned out to be. Well, it defaults to DisplayPort. I didn't happen to plug my speakers into DisplayPort, so it appeared that sound just didn't work. Well, once he fixed the parameters so it worked, and I could switch to one, it turned out that the audio support was splendid on this machine. Before I did that, I had worked out the whole USB audio thing with Lars, which was fun, which is still useful for machines that don't have audio support, which there are plenty. But it's kind of nice that you know, it turned out not to be necessary. So, and then I say a fix included in ArcaOS 501 allows DOS full screen to work. That's the VIOP, and I believe this is the machine it was developed on.
Actually, it was developed on the T520.
Oh, T5, okay. But it applied to this one too. And so it was greatly appreciated. I'm not a DOS user. I didn't come from the DOS world at all. You know, it seems like most of us came from DOS. Most of the rest came from mainframes. I came from minis. So just, okay, I'm definitely the minority case here. So I don't know about DOS programs. I go up and see, oh, DOS window, dir. Do all the 8.3 things appear? Great, it works. Many DOS users tell me that this is an inadequate test. Okay, well, I haven't figured out what an adequate test would be. I'm going to get with some of the DOS users to give me some advice, but it's got to be something that I can run fairly quickly. You know, it's not like, oh, why don't you do your finances in this program for a couple months and see what happens? That's not a good test for me. I just want to turn it on and, you know, yes or no, does DOS work? And I know it's not that simple. DOS support under OS 2 has parameters that don't fit on a page. You know, it's huge, but. And back in the day, I kind of knew those things, but it's been a long time. Yeah, native resolution 1920 by 1080. I'm using it on an external monitor that's 1920 by 1200, just to tell you how old my monitor is. And but it works nicely. And then every time I undock, it reverts to whatever resolution, custom resolution used to implement 1920 by 1200. So then I have to rejigger it. And like right now it's in 1024 by 768 because that's what the projector is using. So I'll naturally reboot it when I, you know, next want to use it on its own screen, or else it'll look kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, and so that's a little bit of a pain with these computers, that you have to change the resolution every time the computer is docked and undocked, and that requires a reboot each time. And that's not completely true. Sometimes it guesses right. And I could almost see an enhancement to the video driver that said, okay, I'm going to dock and undock a lot. Recognize that and pick the right resolution. You know, and I'll even give you the hint. This is the correct resolution. So, you know, it wouldn't be that much. You know, it's like, that's not a hard program. But the user interface is the hardest part, probably. But
I'm gonna take it for that.
I might. That's a, you know, because that would, usability, you know,
Yeah.
it's trivial to implement, but it's just a usability thing. Yeah. So, okay, on to the compact laptop, because I have to cover a few machines in this presentation. I'm going to rush through them. I really liked this machine when I got it, because I was flying for business, and, you know, the seats seemed to get smaller as I kept doing this. And I'd put my machine up, and the person in front of me would sit back, you know, fold back their seat a little bit, and, oh, I can't actually see the screen anymore. So this one fit beautifully on everybody's tray table. They could fold back their seat as much as they could, and nothing would happen. And I was like, oh, this is nice. So that was, and the other use case is the cafe. There never seems to be much space in those places. Yeah. So smaller is better. It's still a fairly powerful machine. You know, even as old as it is, Power consumption 16 watts is pretty good. A new one would be a lot less. This is the 200, it's several generations old, and power became very important to Intel, not because of us, but because of Google and Amazon, who wanted to run data centers. And Google had taken the largest hydroelectric dam on the Columbia River for their data center, and that still wasn't enough. So they said to Intel, fix it. Intel fixed it. They know where the money is. So so power consumption's been getting better and better on new machines. It also helps battery life. I gotta say, the battery life on the big computer is really nice. On this one, not so nice. It's still good, especially with the extended battery. It probably would go for, you know, a whole user group meeting without needing to actually plug it in. So that's kind of nice. Okay, yeah, Core 2 Duo shows you a little bit of age there. ArcaOS just installs fine. DOS window, this is the parameter to fix up DOS windows on this version of laptop. And then Wi-Fi works, but installing it's kind of a bear. You know, install the GenMac driver with no cards, and then go to unsupported and install that and select the 1500. It doesn't do auto select, the 5100, excuse me, and it doesn't do auto select. And at that point, XWLAN will recognize it. The only difficulty is in powering it up. It doesn't power up correctly. So all I do is take the switch on the side of the computer, turn it off, on, off, on, off, on. Now it's been through a few cycles and it's in the right place. It almost always powers up beautifully. And yeah, eventually it'll probably trap. It is unsupported. Actually, even the supported ones trap. Usually trap 8. That's, you know, GenMac is a house of cards. It's Odin, unsupported Win32 drivers. It's amazing it works as well as it does.
Yeah.
And it works at a tremendous speed. The 5100 is the 300 megabit, which seems to be just about universally supported on access points today. So that's a really nice, you know, I can barely tell it from a home connection. That's a beautiful connection. Okay, that's it for the compact laptop. ArcaOS basically installs on all of these, and then you have to fix up, like the audio or the DOS windows. You know, there's various things to fix up. And, you know, I don't see any reasonable plan for ArcaOS to understand all of the possibilities for that. You know, I'm glad I'm not the one who has to work this out. Okay, about desktops. I'm doing the 3 Lenovo M93P computers for desktops. The tower has a lot more space, so many drives. The internals are beautiful, toolless installation of all the drives. I was impressed how quiet the tower was. It turns out I had just been lucky as far as my eBay shopping. After getting a few more, I realized that if I'm getting a used machine, I'm probably going to have to replace the fans. So, oh well. The desktop is smaller, still has the beautiful tool-free thing. They all have nice slots, a PCI slot.
Yeah.
I thought I'd gotten older Lenovo's and they didn't have any PCI slots, so I think they put that back in at customer demand. You really have a lot of flexibility if you can run an old PCI card.
The M93 is a commercial grade desktop machine.
Yeah, I don't know if that's still in the M900 or M910. That's worth looking. I didn't need to know. I didn't need to know, but it sounds like later this year I'm going to have to know.
Yeah.
So, because that's my future plan, is to just stay with this machine except 2 generations newer, and see how it goes. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the 93P, all of the 3 have the PCI?
No.
Just?
The tower and the desktop do. The Tiny is a completely different machine, just happen to share the same model number.
So the desktop does?
The desktop does.
Yeah, okay.
The interesting thing about the tower is full height cards, the desktop half height cards. So, you know, look at your card. You may actually want the desktop if you want a half height card, because otherwise it's going to be kind of flexible in the tower enclosure.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and the Tiny is a unique product, very small box, laptop hard drive, optional laptop, laptop hard drive and optional external DVD drive, which is like fit into another metal case that slides over it, so it looks like it was all one box, but it's not. And I got that to work, but it's not optimal. So, yeah, the reason for the tower is just to have more space inside, or if you like towers. So it seemed like this generation always came with a 500 gig hard drive. Some people have SSDs. They're not on eBay right now, so yeah, occasionally I see them. But this one had 8 gigabytes. I've been focusing on the Core i7 because if you wanted a sort of latest machine, you probably want a whole lot of CPU power. Also, our various issues with Firefox seem to be a lot less if you have a faster CPU. So, okay, I want to offer people that slight addition of stability, and so I've been going that way. But power consumption's up to 30 watts, and that's the CPU. I think if I had the i5, it'd be less.
It's pretty low though, 30 watts.
Yeah, it really is. It, briefly more during boot, but once everything is in place, 30 watts.
Did you measure that? You put one of those things on?
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
try to measure all mine, directly, and I don't. On some cases, I will say how many cores has it got, and run an infinite loop program with enough instances to consume every core and see what the maximum power output is.
And
that's what
that
run in the
CPU,
winter when
it has
I'm
4
told.
cores, that guy?
What?
It has 4 cores?
4
that guy?
cores. Yeah.
And what's the, they have a power rating on CPUs, is it like 65 or do you know what it is?
No,
I'm gonna try
some
not to
site
lie.
I use for that, and I can look them up, and I used to put a table of those on the website, but I haven't updated that lately. But, yeah, I find that the benchmarks are not necessarily that relevant to us, but it's nice to just know. I say, okay, this was the benchmark, and it has some relation to how it's gonna perform under OS 2, but not that much. They didn't test on 32-bit mode in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, so. And ArcaOS, ArcaOS installer will freeze during boot if hyperthreading's on in this machine. So, hyperthreading's gotta be off. /A1 again needed for sound, and DOS window didn't work at all as far as I could see, and DOS window just worked, but I'm wondering if I just put in the VIOP before that. Yeah.
I think I found that the full screen works,
Yeah.
but the VIOP doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do
to it.
anything. That was what I.
You can alt home to get to the window. for the
Yeah.
full screen.
Yeah, and then this is where I had the customer report that, no, DOS doesn't actually work that well.
Yeah.
When I run this program, I get this issue. Okay, I'm gonna just forward this on to, that's the nice thing about being a reseller. I got a little backup.
Why is that they orphaned the DOS virtual support or something on these CPUs these days?
Yeah, the video support in the BIOS is not complete as it was for systems that were built to run DOS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And IBM left off with VSVGA.sys at a certain stage of hardware development.
Mhm.
And none of this other stuff was relevant, so they never patched it
Right.
to deal with incomplete BIOS implementations.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretty reliant on the correct BIOS, and
Mhm.
down the road that may be a strength rather than a weakness.
Yeah.
When BIOS is pretty much gone and we have to supply our own, well, we'll probably fully implement that. So that could be actually a good thing. So the small form factor, I pictured it this way. It's not how I use it, but you notice the logo is this way.
It's got feet on that side,
It's got
so you
feet on the
can
side.
stand it on end.
You stand it on end, and if you look at the literature for it, it's always standing on end.
Yep.
Plus the
But
writing is.
if you talk to people who ran it on
Yeah.
end, if you run it on end long enough, the CD stops working.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, my tower did
So,
Yeah,
That's funny. Hasn't happened to
because
the
my
one
tower's
I'm
on its side.
Well, it hasn't happened to the one I'm using.
Neil, what's the height of that case?
12 inches or something? It's more than 12 inches, it's probably 14.
I was just
Probably
curious.
like that.
Yeah.
It's about what you sent me for,
No,
approximately, approximately.
you had a tower box that was custom, and it was bigger than,
This.
it's bigger than the
Yeah, I
mini
know
tower.
that, that's why I was asking.
No, it's bigger than the tower one.
Yeah.
This is the desktop, the small
Yeah,
one.
well,
So
that's
this is
mine.
even smaller. But yours is pretty much the height, but wider
Yeah,
than their mini
yeah.
tower. Um, So, in this case, I did fool around with an optional disk, and this was a funny story. You know, it's the same as the mini tower, but when I used the 2 terabyte hard drive, it didn't work. And I've rarely seen it where I plug in a hard drive and it just doesn't work. So I said, what's different between this and the 500 gig hard? Oh, it's a server hard drive. So I went into AHCI and I turned on native command queuing and buffer flushing as they recommended. Works great. And it's about 5 times faster than the 500 gig hard drive in the benchmark. Now, I don't know in real world is it really 5 times faster, but that's a significant difference in the benchmark.
Where did you turn that stuff on, in the BIOS of the
No,
machine,
in
or-
the config sys. My
Oh, oh.
os2hci.add, I think it is, /n/f. So that gave me the native command queuing and the buffer flushing, and it was just a tremendous difference, at least for that. You know, I often will, once I really understand the performance, will take, this is how it does for large number of small files, and this is how it does for large files. Because like, if you have an SSD, oh, this is marvelously fast as long as you're loading large numbers of small files. If you use a large file, it's about the same as a crappy hard drive. A good hard drive might be faster. So, yeah, here's, okay, I did /v2 because I just wanted to know what was going on. That just makes the boot message more verbose. But that was what I needed to do to get that. And still, hyper-threading had to be off in BIOS to get through the installation. In this case, I think I just took the install from a tower. No, I did do the installation on this one. So, yeah, so that was necessary. And it's the same motherboard. It's, you know, when I opened it up, the mini tower and the small form factor desktop have the same motherboard. So the mini tower has this motherboard sort of in the little corner of the box, you know, where the slots are. And the rest of the box is just empty. And that's why it has so much room for drives, really, because and it can be a little bit smaller tower because there's no motherboard in most of it. The Tiny, I've been using M92 Tiny, so I you know, this is about M93s, and I have supplied M93s in the past, but what I had to actually work on for this presentation was an M92P. You see it has a Wi-Fi in it. Most of the ones you'll buy used on eBay have the Wi-Fi card. I don't know why. But that's kind of an interesting thing, you know, that once we have a Wi-Fi driver, that a lot of desktops do include Wi-Fi at this point. You won't even need the travel router. And just wiring in desktops is the most expensive part of installing a desktop in the commercial world. You know, just the labor of installing it almost always exceeds the price of the computer. So, you know, anything that saves labor during installation is something that will reduce the actual cost of the computer to the commercial customer. Home customers usually consider their time to be free, and so any amount of fooling around isn't worth a penny. But this one was just a Core i5. It had a 500 gig drive. I replaced that with a 2 terabyte drive because that's how big my working set is right now. And at some point, I'll really desire having the greater than 2 TBs, 2 terabyte support in ArcaOS. that wasn't in the future according to David's presentation, so I don't think I'll say more about that. It's, I think it's coming, but, you know, they haven't actually stated that that'll ever happen. Power consumption 20 watts, I think I read that it's about half that for an M93P, but I didn't have one to measure. So, and this was the last machine to run eComm Station, so I'm saying eComm Station on this one just because at the time I started this presentation, it was still running eComm Station. I now have an ArcaOS installation on this, which I haven't migrated to, so I don't have a lot of runtime on the ArcaOS, but.
How much do these cost?
The tinies are probably used on eBay at 400, 500. You might find one for less. I don't see any relationship between quality and price. I usually go on the, they have a seller profile, and so I usually go by seller rating. And that's probably gonna control the quality of the computer more than the price. You know, paying more is just no indication on eBay of what quality you're gonna get. It's just how much the vendor is demanding. So it's nearly random. Okay, yeah, sound didn't work on this at all. It doesn't work on ArcaOS either. So I used the USB sound system. On eComm Station, I use QS and on ArcaOS, the RAM drive is built in. It's a DVD, USB DVD, so I've been using RSJ CD writer with that, which works. RSJ is really old. The last version they compiled was compiled on IBM CSET, to give you an idea how old their code is. So that's the release before IBM Visual Age, Visual Age 3. So it's old. I think Visual Age came out at the same time as Warp 3. So RSJ.
What is that QS? What's that? QS.
That's the operating system loader. It replaces OS2 loader, and OS2 loader doesn't assign memory properly on modern machines. The video memory puts a hole that's so big that it says, oh, that's the end of memory. And so whatever the first segment of memory is before video memory, that considers to be all the usable memory that OS2 can use. So eventually, as video memory gets more and more, OS2 won't even boot on these machines. But with the QNS init loader, it sees everything.
Is that what like when I installed ArcaOS, I got that?
Yes, ArcaOS uses a custom version of the QS init loader. And that gives you the RAM drive support as well. It also gives you the ability to pay 64-bit Tetris if you'd like to do that instead of running OS2. I don't think the ArcaOS version provides that capability though.
QS, and it used to be the Tetris OS. Yeah.
Is that right?
It's like, that's a joke, right?
I'm not very good at playing Tetris, by the way. DOS window appears to work to me, but, you know, and that's kind of the advantage. I think DOS users really should just go back a few generations so that they get a BIOS that drifted less far from the one that was supported by IBM. There's only so far back you can go and still get a decent used machine though. So that's sort of a trade-off. So I'm thinking about, you know, maybe having a generation or two older than this machine available for people who really rely on DOS support within OS2, because we think that's a big market actually. You know, DOS users, how are they running DOS now? You know, they got some old machine, they'd like to replace it. You know, something fell on it, or you know.
I was wondering about the FreeDOS community. Well, FreeDOS is.
Oh yeah.
It can be interesting to talk to them and try to see what can be.
That's actually a good idea.
Okay,
I hadn't thought of that, and that's you know, I only thought of it when I was trying to make the USB stick for DFC. Oh, it uses FreeDOS. What's that? You know, look it up, see if I knew anybody. No.
No. It
It
can be
seems to
first.
be an offshoot, do you remember Digital Research, DOS?
DR DOS.
They are concurrent DOS. and
The free DOS
DOS.
seems to be a lot of the same guys.
Okay.
So, you know, they did love DOS, they did stick with it, you know, that's their love, now they're retired and they're, you know, they got a hobby, so. All right, the USB sound, I found this adapter, but I did it by, when Laura said, oh, I have this adapter, it works, I go, Germany, I can't buy anything that's available in Germany. So I just looked up the chipset and I was like, oh, everything uses this chipset, okay. So actually the USB audio support is fantastic on OS 2. We really do have good USB audio support. So it was necessary for this machine, and
Let me interrupt you there.
Yeah.
That is why it is important to know the hardware ID of the components that you use.
Yeah.
When I show on the wiki there is the hardware ID of the components.
Yes.
With the hardware ID, you can also like have a very good view of which chipset it is.
we need a,
Yes, with the hardware
we need
ID, you
a
say.
how-to on the wiki.
Yeah.
Because all I'm getting is PCI IDs on there.
Okay.
This doesn't have a PCI ID.
Well, it's
It has a
USB.
USB ID.
With
Right.
LS,
So
USB.
how-to should say, how do I get a USB? And make sure you understand it's necessary to have both
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
wiki. And then, you know, what
Yeah.
are the USB IDs? Most of the devices on a laptop are USB. They're not PCI.
They're both, yeah.
Yeah, there are both
Yeah.
there, but, you know, you really need both lists.
In fact, you have to run PCI, and then you have LS USB,
Mhm.
so you can check
Yeah.
all that is connected on the laptop.
It might be nice to publish a script that just automatically pick those out. I think TestLog probably does.
Yeah, well, I have it also on the
Yeah.
wiki. I'm gonna show it on the
That-
wiki.
That's a good idea.
That LS USB comes on ArcaOS, or you gotta go fish?
It's from Paul.
I think you have to
Paul
fish
Smith.
for it. I think you have
Yeah,
to, yeah.
I recently had a discussion because I was doing something wrong,
Mhm.
and I was blaming everyone, and I was the one to blame, so. And I was trying to see what is going on, and I was screwing up things.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to check LS USB.
My own meta installer, Suntan Special, you know, just runs a bunch of install programs in automated mode. And, you know, since I'm producing the computer, I want a whole set of software that didn't come with ArcaOS or eComStation loaded on there. And, you know, part of it is just for my own support needs, part of it is most users are gonna want this. And, you know, if the user has particular needs, they'll get back to me and tell me, you know, next time you make me a machine, I want this, 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 or this. So I make them a custom script and install their script with Suntan Special on the machines I deliver to them. So I don't have to try to remember everything about everybody's individual OS2 use, but in fact, I just have a list that is machine interpretable to make them a new machine. And it's perfectly transportable across eComStation versus ArcaOS. So even if I have one that's a few years old, I can still put it on a brand new computer with ArcaOS for people. And yeah, for the desktop, small form factor desktop, I know I have to set the UniOn adapter to 1, and then I just execute the standard ArcaOS and other sequences, clean it up, and it's ready to go. An ArcaOS sequence has a bunch of things. ArcaOS has had a number of releases. This basically plugs in all the important parts to an ArcaOS 5.0 release to make it into an ArcaOS 5.03 release. So I just want to have some kind of update. And you know, it does some things. I hate having that list of 8 USB removables appear every time I go and look at the hard drive, so I cut it down to 2 because I never had more than 2 plugged into a machine. I do know people where I have to change that back to 8. I don't know what the maximum is. 8's probably the maximum. USB floppies. I find a lot of people want floppy disk support. You know, if they've been using OS2 a while, they got a room full of floppies, and so I've sold quite a few of the USB floppy drives to people over the years, and which are still widely available, which is weird because no one's making floppies anymore. Any floppy you get is just from old stock at best. So I don't anticipate this staying much longer, but for now, the supply of USB floppies seems to be large.
The
stuff that lawyers keep from years for cases, they still have floppies, so it's gonna be around for a bit until they retire in, what, 7, 8, 9 years or something like that?
Yeah.
So, those floppies work.
Yeah.
Well, right.
Yeah, they still work.
Yeah.
They still work.
They're plastic, they're magnetic, there's a lot of reasons for them to degrade.
Yes.
You know, so, applications, this is the short list. Right now, I think the count is 757 supported applications on Suntan Special, many of which are proprietary and I can't publish. So, but, and a lot of them are old. You know, if it's available in RPM Yum, I probably have a thing, oh, do you have RPM Yum installed? And just call Yum directly and have it do it. I don't want to invent installers. That ArcaOS and Bitwise have made this beautiful installation product that sort of looks like Suntan Special but doesn't support anything old. Interesting, helpful, useful, vital, but lots of people are on OS 2 because they use old programs. So, you know, that's why I want, you know, automation for IBM installer, Warpin, some other old installers, that feature install. There's just a lot of these that, you know, could easily have been added to ArcaOS Package Manager, but that wasn't their focus, and I realized they got limited resources, so they went elsewhere. So I'm still kind of supporting Suntan Special. There is a release as of this weekend, so it's not perfect. But it is kind of what I've been using for years, and since I use it on every machine I deliver, it tends to stay basically up to date and working. You know, I'm sure it had bugs. You know, there's not that many eyes on Suntan Special, but commercial programs, usually I don't give a lot of commercial programs. People say, I got a license for Lotus. Okay, the Lotus installer has a lot of choices in it. Many of them are wrong. Even after that, a lot of things need to be fixed up. It destroys your temporary directory setup, and so, for instance, you install Lotus, ArcaMapper no longer works. Well, you know, I have fix-ups for all that. You know, it's just I don't want to, and I don't want to hear about I'm going to install only this part of Lotus in order to save disk space. Forget it. Yeah. The other thing Lotus is bad for, and worse on ArcaOS, is it takes up a lot of path space. On ArcaOS, I think it takes up about 400 characters of path. The maximum path before OS 2 crashes is 1023. So I think it's better not to stress the path too much. I really should just have a thing that checks. Are you over on the path or the lib path? Is anything over 1023? Okay, I'm gonna stop you from even rebooting because you're not gonna be successful. Games, boy, there are a lot of games over the years. I haven't kept up. I'm not really a gamer. I'll waste a lot of time with solitaire, but you know, to me, you know, I love being entertained, but these get boring after a while. But I wrote them once, so you know, it's like, okay, you can have a games folder with a lot of stuff in it. Once you're done, yeah, you have a pretty full install folder, and that's what I like to deliver is a pretty full install folder. Some of these aren't, you know, they're not going to be your choice of programs, but it's probably good to see the alternatives. Especially if your program hits a bug, and I've got an alternative one on here, you might say, oh, let's see if this one works. So, games, you know, it's a much fuller games folder when you're done. All right, so that's all I've got to say about this. There's probably a lot of questions about new machines, but.
So if you're a Suntan Special user, you can get an upgrade, I think you
Yeah,
mentioned
well,
that.
Suntan Special is now a free download, and upgrades, Suntan Special just upgrades itself. So, I mean, it's under your control. You have to say, oh, upgrade now. But, and I'll be sending a message to all users after the show that, okay, there's a new release out, here's how to get it.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to just automatically detect an update and notify you. I screwed something up, so that doesn't work for all old users. It's, you know, fixed now, but that's good for the next release. But
Okay.
you know, but yeah, it is an automatic upgrade. If you have Suntan Special, it pretty much even on a really old version will automatically upgrade itself.
Okay.
So,
Neil, you just say you search eBay for the laptops. I have also had good results with Walmart web and how do you call it, refurbished laptops. There are several ThinkPads that are not new
okay.
and also can be with the same specifications that you are looking for.
That's
So-
a good note.
Yeah.
I have used Walmart. Walmart's a lot less reliable than eBay. There's no user rating for Walmart. If there was, it wouldn't be that good. When they say, I've got a new machine,
Yeah.
I wouldn't count on it.
Well,
I wouldn't
just
count
say
on it being
refurbish it,
complete.
yeah. Yeah, no, but say refurbish it. I have bought
Yeah.
2, and
Yeah.
both were in very good condition.
Yeah, okay, I've had a good result from
And-
Walmart,
yeah,
but I've had
yeah.
more bad results than
Okay.
good. So I'm just saying, as far as an eBay rating, they wouldn't do that
Okay.
well. And it's
Okay.
only because there is no feedback from Walmart, but,
Mm.
you know, Walmart's a surprisingly well-run, modern company.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't get that much credit because their stores are so ugly, but their website, their back end is
Yeah, the back
fabulous.
end.
They are smart, but it doesn't always yield a good result. I think if you're an expert at using the Walmart website, you might be able to get better results than I do. But, so, you know, I just look, oh, they've got this, great, that's what I need. Oh, I wish I'd used eBay.
Okay.
But, yeah, I've talked to people who worked at, you know, the back end website on Walmart, and it's tremendous.
No,
I mean,
well-
I don't see why Amazon won and Walmart lost. It's
Yeah,
like,
well-
but that shouldn't have happened.
I agree that the backend is very good. For example, I use the service of, because I live in Ecuador, sometimes I came to the US.
Yeah.
And I use the Walmart webpage to say, okay, I want this, and deliver it to this store.
Yes.
And in 3 days
Yeah.
or 5 days, it's arrived, and it's been hold there like for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Until I arrive to pick it up, and it
That's
has
nice.
all been
Yeah.
working for me. So,
There's a convenience
yeah.
aspect that, you
Yep,
know,
but
and
that's-
typical of the coastal areas.
Yeah.
There's no Walmart anywhere near me.
Okay.
It's a long drive to Walmart.
Okay, no problem. You hipsters don't go to Walmart.
No, no. We don't.
The bad news is
Okay.
lunch should be served by now.
All righty.
Okay.
Sorry for going over.
Thank you.